I'm explaining this because, again, it's the exact same thing that they did back in 2007, and inflation was a whole lot higher than it is right now. It was hovering near 4.5%, and right now it's lower. Still going to go higher, don't get me wrong. But again, they still had to cut rates in 2007 in order to deal with the inflation, the recession that they said wasn't going to happen. Just like right now, Powell's declaring that a recession is not going to happen. The Fed is totally clueless to what is about to happen. I believe the recession indicators, we had the uninverting of the yield curve between the 10 and the 3-month. The uninverting of the yield curve, which is telling us recession is very close. That's why I say it's going to hit in the first or second quarter of 2025. We had the Psalm rule. We have other recessionary indicators warning we're about to move into recession. Actually, Bitcoin will top out and begin to price in the recession. Bitcoin has never gone through a legitimate recession cycle where the stock market goes through a bear market, we get a recession, and that's why everybody, first of all, nobody thinks we're going to have a recession, but if we have one, they think, oh, it'll be 2021, and we just get all the stimulus, and it was postponed by doing what they did. The Fed and the government, all they did was postpone the pain, the bad recession we should have got, we're still going to get, only it's going to be worse, but they just postponed it into the future. You get artificial stimulus, you get an artificial economic recovery, you get an artificial rally with Bitcoin and with the stock market. The artificial stimulus wears off, things revert to back to what they were. Again, we have this possible head and shoulders pattern with Bitcoin. Again, my guess is it's not going to play out. My guess is that we're going to see Bitcoin move to a new high in January and likely peak around 120 to 125,000. Closer to 122 to 123,000, but you've got a possible head and shoulders here, as I've talked about. And again, if we break down, we could get a bigger sell. That's certainly possible. Don't want to rule that out. Do I think it'll happen? I doubt it. I think that we have an ABC move right here. I think we're now getting a 1 and a 2. I warned you in my last couple of updates, last video when we were getting the rally, but I warned you weekend, and in my last update I warned you again we were going to see a pullback in all likelihood, and I told you we could see a big pullback because we had this big winning streak right here where Bitcoin rose after we got our inverted hammer right here. Bitcoin rose. That was the last day of the trading for 2024, and then we had this rally that we rose about 12.5% over a few days. About 7 days we rose, and then we began to reverse yesterday, and I told you this was coming. I think we're going to end up establishing a higher low, and again, with today's drop, and again, yesterday we dropped by 5.22%, and then today we're down. At the moment I'm making the video, we had the minutes released about an hour ago, and we're down 2.78%. We were down 4.5% at the lows of the session, so just over 4.5%. I think that we're going to establish a higher low in all likelihood. We're coming back to this level of support for a test, and again, Bitcoin popped above 100,000, and then it dropped right back below it. So I think we're going to push back above 100,000, and I think we'll make a move to take out the high over here at 108,000, our peak there from December. I think that this is corrective. Now, again, it is still possible that a head and shoulders plays out. Again, I don't know the future. I'm just looking at technical support. I'm telling you what I think. I think we're likely going to see a January rally. Move closer to the Fed meeting 3 weeks from today. I think we could see a Bitcoin peak at higher levels. Maybe it goes on deeper into the first quarter, as I've said. I think that there is a very good chance Bitcoin's going to peak in January or the first quarter. I was looking for a December or January top in all likelihood for Bitcoin in the stock market. We've had a December peak. I still think we're going to exceed it. Again, I've got the guts to tell you exactly what I think. My weekly signals remain bullish. I think we're bouncing off support. I think this is a corrective move. We're going to rise to the 120, 125,000 area, and I think that's going to be it for Bitcoin. And then I think we're going to move into a significant downward trend think Bitcoin will top out around 120 to 125,000. Now, again, I think it's going to go higher, and I remain bullish on Bitcoin. But the conventional wisdom is Bitcoin's going to go now to 200,000 to 250,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. It's probably going to try to top around 120 to 125,000, which is the next level of resistance above this peak right here. If we can clear this resistance, which again we stalled at the resistance, I told you at the time when we were getting this topping tail right here, this gravestone doji, we were slamming into major resistance levels in the weekly time frame. And I told you again, there's a high probability we were going to sell off. We did. We dropped nearly 16% here. And I told you I thought we were going to get a rebound. We did. I told you momentum signals were flipping back to bullish. Again, that was correct. And then I told you we were going to get this pullback. That was correct. I think we're likely going to get a higher low and resume the advance. But I'm marking the head and shoulders on here anyways. In case it does play out, my guess is that it won't. And I think that it will end up going back up like NVIDIA. NVIDIA set up a head and shoulders and it did not play out. Bitcoin's now done the same thing. The S&P has done the same thing. My stock videos, you know that NVIDIA set up a head and shoulders and it didn't play out. We ended up setting up a bull flag. And NVIDIA went up and broke the trend line. I think Bitcoin will eventually do that as well. Again, I remain bullish on Bitcoin. My weekly signals remain bullish on Bitcoin. But take a look right here. Bitcoin coming back to VWAP support. I talked about this. Again, we bounced off VWAP support here. You have the levels of horizontal support. We bounced off this level. Even if we go lower, you have another level down right here. But again, we're bouncing off this horizontal level of support right here. I think it's likely going to hold. I think we are likely going to push higher. And if this is a wave 2 and we get a higher low, then we're going to try to break above this high and break above overhead resistance. Now, again, if we cannot rally up and we end up breaking this level down, the risk is that there's not much in the way of support here from our breakout right here of the declining trend line there. There's not much way of support that we get a bigger sell-off. I am of the opinion that Bitcoin is in a wave 4 and it's going to push and get the final wave higher. I think we're in wave 1 and 2 right here. I think we're getting wave 2 in this pullback. And, we had that the bounce at 52,000 there at key support. I think you've got a 1, a 2, a 3. I think you're now getting 4. Maybe it's not done. Maybe we go a little bit lower, possible. Again, NVIDIA broke slightly below the neckline and then it rebounded. But again, if this is wave 4, it either finished over here or it's going to finish a little bit lower if we have a wave 4. And then I think we're going to get wave 5. But it could be wave 5 has started here with a 1 and a 2 and we're now going to go higher. My guess is that is likely going to be the case. And I think you are going to see a January rally and new all-time highs on Bitcoin. Signals remain bullish. Look at that. Trying to bounce here again off a testing VWAP support right here. And that is from the breakout point, the higher low that we had with the breakout point there breaking this downward trend line. Now, we did see signals try to turn back to bullish and they reverted right back to bearish. So that's problematic. But like I said, if we get a higher low, it could be something like what we had back over here, where again we got into positive territory of the cloud and then we went back into negative territory and got back up into positive territory. Same thing over here. And when we got our higher low, here's the 49,000. When we got our higher low, we did the same thing. We bottomed out at 49,000. We got above into the positive portion of the cloud and then we pulled back and then we got back and stayed consistently above it over and over. And again, right now we've seen the peak. We dropped below it. We had to get above 99,900 or 550. We did, but it was a fake out move so far. We'll be watching to see if this low can hold, or again, is there more work to be done? Again, the wave 4 still be under construction, but I do think it is likely a wave 4, and then I think we will resume the advance in January. In mind, again, the rally towards my target level could drag out in the first quarter here, but I still think we're going to reach it. I think you got a good shot of Bitcoin reaching it in January over the next 3.5 weeks or so. I think you could, on into early February, I think you could reach that objective target. For the advance to resume, we got to get back into the positive portion of the cloud and get momentum back into the positive region. Bitcoin tried to get the price oscillator back into positive territory. It's turning back down right now. Again, if we establish a higher low, it can turn right back up. We'll be watching. Does it go negative and stay there? It's right there on the center line right now. But again, we came up to this 99,500 area. We got above it. We moved above 100,000, and then we quickly turned right back down. Again, you had a big move up. 12.5% move up. We're now pulling back. You're likely going to get a higher low, and then I think you're going to resume the advance. By the way, I warned you about this sell-off because we got a 13 count right there at the peak, and again, we got warning signs slamming into major resistance, and we were forming these negative divergences, and we talked about all that back up at the top before we had this nearly 16% sell-off. So again, we've dropped back below the 50 period. The risk is that we take out horizontal support and we come down to the 100 period or the 200 period moving average. Certainly possible, but again, I still think Bitcoin, even if it gets a bigger sell-off, I still think it will move to new highs. It just may take longer to reach the line that I've been talking about there in the weekly time frame. But here, dropping back below, again, this is really just kind of showing we're going sideways right now. If we hold below the lower portion of the cloud here and we start dropping and we see this turn red, then the door is open for a bigger dump to the 100 or 200 period moving averages. So I'll be watching to see if horizontal support can hold here, and if it does, you got a shot at a higher low here. We'll be watching to see if the lows from late 2024 there can hold as support. 13 count I mentioned in the daily time frame. We got that right at the top there. Warned you about that as we were slamming into major resistance. And then again, the counts have kind of gone back and forth right now because we're just in this sideways range, forming a possible head and shoulders pattern. So we've been kind of going sideways, and the counts keep getting canceled out, bullish and bearish counts, as we go up and down. Again, the counts are designed to spot trending moves, and when you go sideways, they just go back, they start and stop, and that's what happens, and that's what we have right now. Currently a 2 of a 9 to the downside. If we get a higher low at key support here, you break it, then watch that 100 period moving average in the daily time frame. Please support the channel with the link directly below that allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel. Thank you for your consideration for that. The link below will take you to a secured site. You could donate any amount you want. The Bitcoin price is testing the 400 period moving average here in the 4-hour time frame. Again, you got a possible right shoulder, as we've talked about, and again, we're going to be watching to see if we get a higher low here. Does the low from late 2024 in December there, does it hold as support? If the bullish divergence has played out and we got a first leg higher and a pullback here, we need to see the advance resume with a higher low. If we're going to get a bigger dump, we'll take out this low, and I'll show you the levels to be watching in this video. We had the bullish diversions give us a rally. Do we confirm a higher low and get back into positive territory on these 4-hour charts? Do we get the 50 back above the 200? Or again, does it fail and we end up taking out the support and getting a bigger dump and moving to a new low, taking out the December low over here? I am of the opinion Bitcoin is still going to move to new highs. My weekly signals remain bullish, so I remain longer term bullish on Bitcoin. I think it's going to move and peak out around 120 to 125,000. Now, just quickly, with the potential right shoulder, we are with that reversal bar we got yesterday. We did get a little T here. We did get a little X. Now we're getting a little S. Momentum line has not changed. The cloud flipped back to a bullish buy signal after these bullish signals formed. Again, this is telling us we're either going sideways or up, and if we break this support level, then we're going sideways or down. Again, I'll be watching to see if we get a higher low. I'll be watching to see if we take out the lower boundary of the cloud. Right now we've come back, we've tried to do it, and we're pushing above it. We could get a bottoming tail or a rebound by the end of the session that prevents that from happening. So we'll be watching it. Again, we've had, the signals go back and forth. These momentum signals go back, to bearish, back to bullish, bearish, and again, through this sideways price action forming our head and shoulders pattern. So again, we'll be watching to see if we can have support hold. But really, this line right here reflecting the swing move has been neutral. It's been going sideways. If we can resume the advance, it'll start rallying up once Bitcoin starts going higher. But if we break down, it could turn down, and that could take us to the 100 or the 200 period moving average. We have the balance of power in positive territory still, even with the sell-off. It could change by the end of the session. We'll be watching that, but it's just barely in positive territory now. It could sink into negative territory before the session ends if we end up getting a bigger sell-off or, again, close near the lows of the session. Now, the impulse line is turning back to red with today's selling pressure. The impulse line is a little bit more sensitive than the momentum line, marking short-term price fluctuations. But again, these bullish signals, we'll be watching to see if this low can hold, or do we now start taking it out. If we do take it out and move towards a 100 period moving average, we might form a divergence here on some indicators. We move to a new low right here with momentum, and that's a risk that we still end up forming a divergence and going down lower before we attempt a recovery. I still think, though, even if we go lower, we're going to get a bigger rebound to new highs in all likelihood, unless we start seeing the weekly signals all begin to turn back to bearish, validating the December peak as a top. Now, should the head and shoulders pattern start to play out, we start breaking down, again, you've got your 100 period right here, you've got this trend line right here from the low here, and if we exclude the shadow right there, you got another trend line from here to here that we have directly above the 100 period moving average. So just some trend lines that I've been watching, and then we have the one back over here from 49,000 that is under the 200 period moving average, or if we include the shadow, closer to the 400 period moving average. So those are the trend lines that I'm watching on Bitcoin, and again, along with horizontal support. Now, if we do go lower, again, we could see some signals start forming divergences if that's the case. Again, I think that we have a wave 4 here, and it could be done with this ABC type of a move, or it could be a larger A, B, and then we get a C down towards the 100 period, or maybe one of these trend lines. So we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But if we get a higher low and we recover by the end of the session and then on into tomorrow, then again, we'll be watching to see if we establish a higher low and start to go parabolic with the next move higher. And the Trump rally with cryptocurrency can continue as we move towards Inauguration Day. And again, it could be that we see peaks surrounding the Fed. If we rally with surrounding Trump's Inauguration Day, we're pulling back ahead of it. We've had the December sell-off, and then now a little bit more volatility to start the new year after the bounce. So again, I think we're going to get another push higher, but we'll be watching to see if support is taken out or not. If we get a bigger pullback, I still think Bitcoin's going to go to new highs. Here's a trend line with our log scaling, and again, connecting this low and this low right here. We're coming down, and it intersects with the horizontal support. Linear and log, they are a little bit different on the trend lines, but again, RSI had turned back above 50, turned back down. Remember, we talked about the break of this trend line, and that marked this turn right here from our peak, forming our multiple point diversions on the RSI. Now we've come back up and we've back tested that trend line. So again, we've got to go back above 50 to resume the advance. If we hold below 50, then we're just back testing, and we can get a bigger dump again to the 100, the 200, or some of these trend lines. The risk is that Bitcoin gets a bigger sell-off, or that Bitcoin has topped. And again, it could have around the trend lines that I've talked about. We again turned off of those trend lines when we've rallied up. They're in the weekly time frame. I've talked about them in each and every video, but going to be watching to see, do we get a bigger sell-off? Right now we're seeing a sell-off on concerns, inflation with the 10-year yield soaring, seeing that rattle the stock market and Bitcoin as well. MACD looks just like the price oscillator. Again, it turned in positive territory and it's starting to turn down. If it could turn back up, then again, we can resume the advance. If we go into negative territory and remain there, you can get a bigger dump. Again, there's not much in the way of support in this area right here. So if it breaks, the risk is that you come down to a trend line or a moving average here, the 100 or the 200 period moving average, or even as low as a horizontal support. Now, again, I told you I thought we were going to see a peak in December or January. We failed to reach the objective target in December. I still think we're going to reach it, the upper channel line there on the weekly chart, but we still could get a bigger sell-off before that happens. My guess is that Bitcoin has not peaked, but I'm open-minded to that if I start seeing evidence of that in the weekly time frame. Remember, Bitcoin follows a 100 period moving average. That's its pink line in the daily time frame. It follows a 20-week in the weekly time frame. Again, if we do lose this support, we might just come down here and bounce off that 100 and then resume the advance. Again, I believe we have a wave 4, but it could be, like I said, an A, a B, and then we get a C like that, and then go, or it may be an A, a B, and a C like that. So again, I think that we're going to to new highs, even if we get a bigger sell-off. But again, want to show you these other levels because, again, all options turning off of resistance, all options are on the table. So we'll be watching. When we got above the 100 period moving average, we pulled back to it for a test. The MACD and the price oscillator got into positive territory and firmed up there. And again, just now breaking in the negative region here above the 100, but again, you got to get the oscillator in positive territory remaining there. Again, it turned up and now it's turned down. We'll see if we can rebound by the end of the session or on into tomorrow at key horizontal support. We get a bottoming tail, maybe we get a rebound, but if this level breaks, which it could, again, watch the 100 period coming in, again, just below the 85,000 area. But the MACD and the price oscillator doing the same thing here. So again, we'll see if we can recycle back up here, but trying to roll over at the moment as momentum goes back to negative and the RSI goes back below 50. Again, we got to go back above 50 on that RSI to resume the advance. And the daily time frame, we've had pring parameter roll over here. I think we're going to end up pushing up through this trend line of resistance, and again, we just slightly overthrew it. I think we'll end up pushing up through it and going up to this upper boundary here, and I think we'll end up seeing a divergence form in the most recent price action on pring parameter. Whether we go down to the 100 or not for a test or not, we'll see. Again, I'm a big believer in the 100 period moving average. Again, when we topped over here, we dropped below it, got rejection at it, bad things happened. Rejection, got above it here, found support, we went sideways here, and then you got back above it, found support, bounced, and then you lost it, rejection, we had the larger correction. So I'm a big believer in the 100 period. We're above the 100 period, may pull back to it. Once we hold above the 100 period moving average, good things can happen on Bitcoin. When you start losing it, bad things start happening on Bitcoin. You have this massive divergence with the March peak here. I think you're going to get a divergence likely in this most recent price action, and then I think Bitcoin will reach about the 120 to 125,000 area, and I think it'll top. That's what I think is likely going to be the case, but like I said, we still may go lower. My guess is we could try to find a higher low there at horizontal support, but again, either way, I'm open-minded to either way, but I do think Bitcoin will eventually go to the upper end of the channel. The other thing to note is, again, when Bitcoin broke out, when it bottomed out right here, Bitcoin went positive, and it's been consistently positive ever since with pring parameter. Do you see this? And again, when we went briefly negative right here, it was when we were going sideways and we lost the 100 period. You got back above the 100 period, you got back and firmed up, got back into positive territory. Same thing here, briefly negative here, 33% decline. We got back above that 100, we back tested it, and again, back into positive territory. Now you're forming a divergence very similar to what you had back over here. So the risk is Bitcoin stops making new highs. My guess is, though, that it will make another push higher. I think we'll stall out at the upper end of the channel. But again, I am a big believer in the 100 period moving average, the 20-week moving average. That's what Bitcoin follows. And when Bitcoin had the breakout here, it got above the 100 period moving average. You broke out. My signals in the weekly time frame all turned back to bullish. Momentum in the weekly time frame turned back to bullish when we got above that 100 period moving average. So again, the weekly signals remain bullish, and I remain bullish on Bitcoin, believing it's going to go to about 120 to 125,000. In the weekly time frame, we turned off this trend line, and you can see here in the weekly time frame from the 2021 low with our log scaling. We turned right off of it, tried to get above it, and it failed. Talked about that at the time. I warned you we were going to go up to that trend line, and there was a very good chance that we were going to stall. We did. Still think we're going to reach the upper end of the channel here, and we very well could do that in January, and I think you can end up forming a divergence here on the RSI. Now again, we're turning down for the week. We're down about 4.25% for the week. We had a rally, we gave it back. See how we end the week, and then we'll see, do we break support and get a bigger sell-off, or do we rebound? Here's our 20-week moving average. Again, Bitcoin follows the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame, the 100 in the daily. Again, as long as we can hold above that 20-week moving average, I still think we're on our way to the upper channel line here. Again, probably towards the end of January, maybe on into February if we do. But again, we'll see how we close the week out. And, you know, we're turning down with the RSI. That may be gone by the end of the week if we can rebound off support. If we break it, and again, maybe we still get something uglier, but still end up forming a divergence right here at some point in the first quarter. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. If we zoom out, we still have a 20-50 bullish signal. We got above the 50 level on the RSI. We got above the 20 level here. We pulled back, and then we rebounded. We're holding above the 20. We're holding above 50. So again, Bitcoin can continue to advance as long as that bullish scenario is present here in the weekly time frame. We're forming these divergences. I think eventually here, and the MACD has gone higher, but the price oscillator, momentum oscillator, they have not. I think you'll eventually see a divergence develop on these histograms, and I think that will prevent a bearish crossover, and then I think you'll get the divergence, and then I think you'll get the crossover once that happens. But I think we'll be rallying up to new highs before these crossovers happen here in the weekly time frame. And again, they've really marked tops over here back in 2021. So I think you're going to get one more push on into new highs and create total complacency. And again, he believes that a recession is coming. Nobody believes Bitcoin is at risk. And I think I'm bullish, and I think it's going to go higher. And my signals turn back to bullish with the breakout and momentum before that here in the weekly time frame. Again, I think it's going to stall around this trend line here, and I think that's going to be around 120 to 125,000 when we come into contact with the trend line. We tried it over here. It was at a little bit lower levels, but over several weeks after reaching the December high, we failed to come into contact with it. The negative divergence is set up with our linear scaling. Bitcoin turned off of this trend line right here, excluding the shadows and including the shadow here in 2021 at the high. We went and overthrew it just ever so slightly, formed that divergence. I think you're going to end up getting a divergence here in the most recent price action. I've talked about this trend line. Again, we may stall at it and go to a new high and stall at it, or we may overthrow it and again go to the levels that I've been talking about, near 120 to 125,000. Maybe lower if we just go back up to this trend line and stall out. But again, this could mark a top here, and I'm open-minded to that, but I need to see more evidence as that's going to be the case. Again, my weekly signals are still bullish, and I still think a divergence is likely going to form in the more recent price action, and we very well could clear this trend line in the weekly time frame with our linear scaling, move up to that upper channel line with the log scaling. We got that topping tail in the monthly time frame in December. Trying to get one right now again. But again, I think you're going to end up moving above that. That's the risk, that the topping tail holds as a high, and that's it, and Bitcoin's topped at the trend line that we just looked at, and the other trend line with our log scaling from the 2021 low. So again, but you've got these divergences. we buy a little bit more time. The month is young. These divergences are here, but we've just started the month. Again, you only get 1 bar per month. But again, you can see the divergences are setting up here in the monthly time frame. So again, I think the time is short. Again, in the monthly time frame, MACD's moved to new high. We still have a divergence on the histogram forming, but you still have a larger divergence developing on the price oscillator, the momentum oscillator here. Again, I think that Bitcoin is still got a good shot of reaching objective target, which is that upper trend line. But I told you it could turn off the trend lines we've turned off right now, and we did get a topping tail there. So again, if it gets confirmed and a follow through, then maybe that's all she wrote for a December high. We'll be watching for clues. And we'll see if we recover before the month ends, if we recover to go back and challenge that high or even move above it, or do we confirm by the end of the month, do we confirm this candlestick as a reversal bar? There is a possibility of a top with that topping tail at the resistance levels, trend lines in the weekly time frame. Strategy is down 2% for the week. I think, and Bitcoin, as I mentioned, is down. I think MicroStrategy is going to end up going back to this upper channel line here, and probably in January, maybe on into February, but I think that both of them will peak at some point in the first quarter. And I think you got a pretty good shot that happens in January if we can get a big rally over the next 3.5 weeks going into inauguration and the Fed day, and that I think we could see the RSI do the same thing here and get a divergence in the most recent price action. We have that larger divergence, but I think we're coming back up here. I think the MicroStrategy is going to double over here and go up into this level here in all likelihood. And again, then I think it's going to complete the blow off top and the bubble. And I think Bitcoin will do the same thing, moving to the upper channel line. And again, right now at the moment, Bitcoin's down 4.34% for the week. Here's the weekly chart again, our trend line from the 2021 low pointing up. We turned right off of it, tried to overthrow it. It failed. We're trying to bounce off the 10-week moving average. I'll be watching to see what the weekly candle looks like. If it is a reversal bar, if we can rebound back up, or do we got to get a bigger drop? If we get a bigger drop, we start losing the 10-week moving average. You've got the 20-week moving average below. You've got that, again, that 100-day in the daily time frame, which is a little bit higher, but we'll be watching the moving averages. We bounced previously over here off the 50. We talked about that, and then we got back above that 20-week moving average, and then we've been holding above it. We're testing the 10 right now. And again, the 10 is above the 20. So some bullish things happening, but we're getting a pullback, and we'll be watching. Do we reach this upper channel line? I think we're still going to reach this level, but then I think we're going to top out. We could top out at this trend line. That is certainly possible. I don't want to rule that out, but I have to see evidence of that. And right now, my weekly signals remain bullish. Could bounce right here around our 10-week, or if we get a bigger dump closer towards the 20 or the 100-day in the daily time frame. But I think we eventually move to this upper channel line. Now again, if we reach that upper channel and we clear the red trend line here from the 2021 low there that separates the two 2021 peaks, I think we'll reach the upper channel of this trend line, and it intersects with this trend line right in this area. And I think that could be at the very end of January or the very beginning of February that we reach this level. I think over the next 3 weeks or maybe 4 weeks, I think we will reach this level, but then I think Bitcoin is likely going to top here in the first quarter and possibly in January. And again, if we zoom out, that channel is pointing up to the upper boundary here of this larger channel, going back to these lows in 2019 or late 2018, pardon me, and 2020. And you've got a parallel channel there where I think we're going to reach, and I think that's going to be tagged. And again, are between 120 and 125,000. We may even overthrow that level just a little bit. I think we'll start seeing weaker economic data, and then I think that we will start seeing the stock market begin to price in a recession. I think Bitcoin will do the same as well. And I think we'll get another channel that looks like this that will take us back towards this trend line depending on when we reach it. Right here, this trend line takes us into mid-2026 here the angle of descent could be different. But if Bitcoin does top out and price in recession, that very well could be the case. It would take Bitcoin lower than 15,000 towards this trend line down here. We get rejection at Bitcoin up here at these two trend lines right here. I've drawn these channels, and again, channels seem to play out very nicely with Bitcoin. So if we do start a reversal, we'll be watching to see if a new downward channel begins to develop.